Trump's defense in the election interference cases, where he argues and his lawyers argue that he enjoys executive privilege or immunity at the time the January 6th riots took place, well, then that means that he has the immunity that presidents typically enjoy. He also kind of fails to answer what Sotomayor is asking about in a way that makes her pleased with his take, right?
Imagine thinking you're so special that laws don't apply to you. Now, imagine being so confident in this belief that you argue it before the Supreme Court. That's exactly what Trump did with his presidential immunity claims. The Supreme Court just responded with a giant nope. Even the justices Trump appointed weren't buying his "I'm untouchable" routine. This ruling isn't just about one case, it's about whether we're a nation of laws or a nation where some people get special treatment. Let's break down what happened. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So, did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now, back to the video. Ever wonder what happens when a guy who thinks he's untouchable meets 9 people in black robes? Trump's legal team marched into the Supreme Court with what might be the most ridiculous argument in legal history.
Justice Sonia Sotomayor grilled Trump's attorney, John Sawyer, on the notion of granting presidents absolute immunity.
A corrupt person, and he orders the military or orders someone to assassinate him. Is that within his official acts that for which he can get immunity?
Previously, Sawyer had argued that the president could order SEAL Team 6 to assassinate one of his political rivals and not face any consequences for it.
That a president can basically do whatever he wants and call it official business. It's like walking into a vegetarian restaurant and demanding a steak because you declared the cow a vegetable. The Supreme Court justices weren't buying what Trump was selling. During oral arguments, they put his lawyer, John Sauer, through the ringer with questions that exposed just how dangerous this immunity argument really was. And boy, did it get awkward fast. Justice Sotomayor delivered the knockout punch when she asked if a president could order SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival and still be immune from prosecution if he labeled it official business. You'd think any normal lawyer would immediately say, no, of course not. But Sauer's response? He stammered around, trying to find a loophole that would let his client off the hook. The justices weren't impressed with this presidential murder loophole trademark. It's like watching someone try to convince their teacher that the dog ate their homework.
Donald Trump's federal election interference trial, one of the last chances to hold him accountable for the crimes of January 6th before the upcoming election.
To authorize the prosecution of a president for his official acts would open a Pandora's box from which this nation may never recover.
His lawyers stood before the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, probably the second most important court in all the land, and before the nation and those 3 judges argued that a president can effectively do whatever he wants.
But the teacher has security footage of them throwing it in the trash. The justices' faces basically screamed, "Are you serious right now?" Even Trump's own appointees looked like they were suffering from secondhand embarrassment. The justices didn't stop there. They kept throwing increasingly wild scenarios at Trump's lawyer. Can a president rob a bank and call it official presidential cash collection? According to Trump's legal logic, maybe? The justices were essentially saying, so you want us to create a get-out-of-jail-free card for presidents. They weren't about to turn America into a monarchy with a 4-year term limit.
As a matter of constitutional bedrock American law, there can be no criminal accountability for anything he does, no matter how violent or evil.
Could a president who ordered SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival who was not impeached, would he be subject to criminal prosecution?
If he were impeached and convicted first. And
So your answer is no.
As his lawyer was forced to concede having his political opponents murdered.
Could a president order SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival? That's an official act in order to SEAL Team 6.
But the real chef's kiss of embarrassment came when Trump's lawyers accidentally torpedoed their own argument. In trying to navigate the justices' tricky questions, they admitted that, well, actually some presidential actions could be considered private rather than official. Oops. That little slip completely contradicted their main argument that everything a president does is protected by immunity. It was the legal equivalent of claiming you're allergic to peanuts while snacking on a Snickers bar. Legal experts called it what it was, a major blunder. Their whole case rested on the idea that a president's actions are automatically official business, but then they accidentally admitted that's not true. It's like forgetting the words to your own song while performing it. This accidental admission created a Grand Canyon-sized hole in their immunity argument that the court immediately spotted and exploited. If some presidential actions are private, then who decides what counts as official? Trump's answer seemed to be me, myself, and I.
The court has always decided controversial cases. The decisions have always been subject to intense criticism. And that is entirely appropriate.
Very unfair rulings. Rulings that people can't even believe. This case should have ended years ago on summary judgment. The best lawyers, I have spoken to so many lawyers, they said, this is not a case.
And they're certainly free to criticize the Supreme Court. And if they want to say that its legitimacy is in question, they're free to do so. But I don't understand the connection between opinions that people disagree with and the legitimacy of the court.
He wanted to be the sole judge of which of his actions deserved immunity. The justices saw right through it. They recognized that Trump wanted a system where he could slap an official business label on anything from legitimate policy decisions to potentially criminal acts and face zero consequences. The court basically responded with nice try and ruled that presidents can't escape accountability by playing the immunity card whenever it suits them. What Trump's team didn't seem to understand is that immunity exists to protect the presidency, not the person who happens to occupy the Oval Office. It's there to let presidents make tough decisions without fear of frivolous lawsuits, not to let them break laws with impunity. The Supreme Court essentially told Trump that being president doesn't mean you get to play by different rules than everyone else.
Trump's defense in the election interference cases, where he argues and his lawyers argue that he enjoys executive privilege or immunity.
His lawyers stood before the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, probably the second most important court in all the land, and before the nation and those three judges argued that a president can effectively do whatever he wants, as his lawyer was forced to concede having his political opponents murdered.
Could a president order SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival? That's an official act in order to SEAL Team 6.
It's like telling a toddler that no, you can't have ice cream for breakfast just because you declared yourself the king of breakfast. Trump's reaction to the ruling? Well, let's just say he probably wasn't doing his happy dance. The man who built his entire legal strategy on the belief that he was above the law suddenly found himself facing the cold reality that former presidents can indeed be held accountable for their actions. His I'm special defense strategy turned out to be about as solid as his Trump stakes business, which, if you don't remember, went belly up faster than you can say, well done with ketchup. Let's wrap this up with the juiciest part of this whole fiasco. Trump's own Supreme Court picks just showed him the door. The guy who appointed these justices thought they'd be his personal get-out-of-jail-free cards, but surprise, they chose the Constitution over kissing his orange behind. What a plot twist. Trump viewed these appointments as his legal insurance policy, but they weren't having it. These justices basically looked at their former boss and said, sorry, not sorry. The lesson? Even when you stack the deck with your own people, the law still wins. America, 1. Grumpy Trumpy, 0.